It's going to be a fairly short one, unless I get to rambling on. And this is what the Bible says about taking revenge. Christian never wants to, if you're a Christian, you never want to take revenge. The Bible has a great deal to say about revenge. Both the Hebrew and Greek words translated vengeance or revenge and avenge have as their root meaning the idea of punishment. This is crucial in understanding why God reserves for himself the right to avenge. The key verse regarding this truth is found in the Old Testament and quoted twice in the New Testament. God said in Deuteronomy 32:35, "To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste." In Romans 12:19, "Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord." Hebrews 10:30, "For we know him that hath said, Vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, saith the Lord. And again, the Lord shall judge his people." Okay, in Deuteronomy, the first one, God is speaking of the stiff-necked, rebellious, idolatrous Israelites who rejected him and incurred his wrath with their wickedness. He promised to avenge himself upon them in his own timing and according to his own perfect and pure motives. The two New Testament passages concern the behavior of a Christian who is not to usurp God's authority. Rather, we are to allow him to judge rightly and pour out his divine retribution against his enemies as he sees fit. Unlike us, God never takes vengeance from impure motives. His vengeance is for the purpose of punishing those who have offended and rejected him. We tend to want to get back at those who offended us in some way. We can, however, pray for God to avenge himself in perfection and holiness against his enemies, and to avenge those who are oppressed by evil. In Psalm 94:1, the psalmist prays for God to avenge the righteous, not out of a sense of uncontrolled vindictiveness, but out of just retribution from the eternal judge whose judgments are perfect. Even when the innocent suffer and the wicked appear to prosper, it is for God alone to punish. Nahum 1:2. God is jealous, and the Lord revengeth. The Lord revengeth and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies. There are only two times in the Bible when God gives men permission to avenge in his name. First, after the Midianites committed violent acts against the Israelites, the cup of God's wrath against the Midianites was full, and he commanded Moses to lead the people in a holy war against them. The Lord said to Moses in Numbers 31:1-2, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterward shalt thou be gathered into thy people." Here again, Moses did not act on his own. He was merely an instrument to carry out God's perfect plan under his guidance and instruction. Second, Christians are to be in submission to the rulers God has set over us, because they are his instruments for vengeance on evildoers. Got new lips today. As is Moses' case, these rulers are not to act on their own, but are to carry out God's will for the punishment of the wicked. It's tempting to try to take on the role of God and seek punishment for those who we feel deserve it. But because we are sinful creatures, we're in the flesh, it is impossible for us to take revenge with pure motives. This is why the Mosaic Law contains the command in Leviticus 19:18. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Even David, a man after God's own heart, refused to take revenge on Saul, even though David was the innocent party being wronged. David submitted to God's commands to forego vengeance and trust in him. 1 Samuel 24:12. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge the wrongs you have done to me, but my hand will not touch you. As Christians, we're to follow the Lord Jesus' commands to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, leaving the vengeance to God. The main reason we turn to revenge is not because of anger. We can be angry with someone and not seek revenge. But when our anger becomes wrath, that is when revenge comes into play. The definition of wrath is strong, vengeful anger or indignation. You want to punish the person for an offense or a crime. This is why the Bible says to put away all wrath. Wrath can consume a person to the point of the person going into a rage. At that point, there is no calming the person. This is when revenge becomes foremost on the person's mind. We must not let our anger get to this point. Remember, vengeance belongs to God. I'm going to give you a couple of instances in my life about when God took vengeance on our behalf. We were living up in Missouri. We were in the wilderness, basically. Me and my wife and kids were just wandering in the wilderness. Didn't have any money. Couldn't pay rent anywhere. But we found a farmhouse that we rented. And the main cop of that town did not like us. We were poor. We had a piece of junk vehicle. And we couldn't even go through town without getting pulled over and being harassed. Well, we got up to the point where we got tired of it and we left there and we moved to a different town and got on some land. And we were living in about some 2x4s, wrapped it in plastic with a tin roof. Dirt floor. That's what we lived in. And after we left that, we lived there for quite a while. And after that, we moved back to Arkansas, where I am right now. And we had heard through the grapevine that police officer that was always harassing us all the time, they found him in his office, in his chair. He had shot himself, committed suicide. God avenged us. The guy's dead. And one other time, where we live right now, or where I live right now, my wife's in heaven now, but we were attacked at the end of our driveway by a gang. Oh, I wanted so much to do something, but God wouldn't let me. I had a big rock in my hand, and the guy was sitting in the car. I was going to bash his head in with that rock. But God said, no, vengeance is mine. So I dropped the rock. And over a period of a few months, I basically forgot about it. I forgave him. My wife forgave him. Everybody, they were all forgiven and all that stuff. Then, a little less than a year from that occurrence, I heard the one that attacked me was killed in a car wreck, decapitated. God took vengeance. And I'm glad that I listened to him. You know, it was sad, actually. It really was sad. I felt bad. I really did. I felt bad about it. And then my angel, Micaiah was the name of my angel, took me in the spirit to hell. And that guy that attacked me was standing in fire up to his chest. And I'll never forget it. I felt so sad, and he's hollering over and over, "Forgive me, Mr. Carr, forgive me, Mr. Carr." I can still hear those words today. And I had already forgiven him. But that's God's vengeance. So please, let God have the vengeance. Don't do revenge yourself. God bless you all.